It's just after dawn in Los Angeles. The city glows with the promise of a new day, sunlight spilling over glass towers and quiet streets. The city wakes, but for thousands, there was no real sleep. The hum of traffic and distant sirens are their lullabies, the cold concrete their mattress. Under a freeway overpass, a man folds a worn blanket, arranging his few belongings into a shopping cart, his home on wheels. Each morning, he repeats this ritual, preparing to face another uncertain day. He is a ghost in his own city, a resident without a residence. His presence is felt only in passing glances, his story left untold. We see him, but we don't. We drive past and he disappears from our minds, blending into the background of daily life. He is part of an unseen nation, living a life of quiet desperation all around us. Their struggles are woven into the fabric of our cities, yet so often ignored. This isn't just a big city story. Homelessness stretches far beyond the city limits, touching small towns and rural communities alike. In rural Oregon, a family of 4 sleeps in their old sedan. Their car, once a symbol of freedom, is now their only refuge. The parents take turns staying awake, watching over their children, listening for any sign of trouble in the night. By day, the kids go to school, trying to blend in, while the parents search for work, hoping for a chance to rebuild. By night, their car becomes their shelter. The seats are beds, the dashboard a nightstand, the windows fogged with breath and hope. They are hidden in plain sight, their struggle masked by quiet streets and drawn curtains. Few notice, fewer still understand. These are not isolated incidents, they are snapshots from a national crisis. Every city, every town has its own unseen nation. From tent cities in Phoenix where rows of tents stretch for blocks to hidden encampments in the Appalachian woods where families seek shelter among the trees, millions are caught in a cycle of survival. They are veterans who once served their country, former teachers who once inspired young minds, teenagers forced to grow up too soon, and families one paycheck away from disaster, their lives upended by illness, job loss, or rising rents. Their stories are often reduced to statistics, their faces blurred into a collective problem. But behind every number is a name, a history, a hope for something better. The reality of homelessness in 2025 is complex and widespread, rooted in broken systems and shredded safety nets. Rising costs, limited affordable housing, and shrinking support services have left millions vulnerable. To truly understand, we must be willing to look and see the people behind the crisis. Only then can we begin to imagine solutions and restore hope to the unseen nation among us. The numbers are staggering. They aren't just statistics on a page, they represent real people, real lives, and a growing emergency that can no longer be ignored. In early 2025, over 653,000 people were homeless on a single night, the highest ever recorded in the United States. This is not just a number, it's a wake-up call. That's a 12% jump from the previous year, a runaway train, not a slow-moving problem. The crisis is accelerating, and the headlines grow more urgent by the day. Families with children are among the fastest-growing groups, facing challenges that threaten to break them apart. Over 186,000 people and families, including more than 110,000 children, are without a home tonight. These are families who once had stability, now forced into uncertainty. Imagine a child trying to do homework in a shelter or car, struggling to focus while surrounded by chaos and noise. Their future is at risk before it even begins. The stress and instability can leave lasting scars, shaping the course of their lives. The crisis exposes deep racial inequalities that have existed for generations, making it clear that homelessness is not experienced equally. Black Americans are 13% of the US population, but 37% of the homeless. This stark disparity is a symptom of deeper injustices. Native Americans face similar disparities, often overlooked but just as severe, with entire communities struggling to find safe shelter. This is the legacy of systemic discrimination, decades of policies and practices that have excluded and marginalized people of color. Homelessness is not colorblind, it preys on marginalized communities, deepening the wounds of inequality. Each number is a person, a family torn apart, a child's future in jeopardy. Behind every statistic is a story of loss, resilience, and hope. The problem is getting worse, not better, and spreading everywhere, from big cities to small towns and rural communities. Ignoring these numbers is no longer an option. The crisis is at our doorstep, demanding attention and urgent solutions. They are a loud alarm bell, warning us that the foundation of our society is cracking under the weight of neglect and indifference. The crisis is not just about housing, it's about who we are as a nation and what we are willing to stand for. We must confront the reality, not just the statistics. It's time to see the faces, hear the voices, and recognize the humanity behind the numbers. The time for action is now. Communities, leaders, and individuals must come together to demand change and offer hope. The cost of inaction is measured in lives lost, families broken, and futures stolen. We cannot afford to look away any longer. Why is this crisis exploding now? Why are so many more people suddenly without a place to call home? A perfect storm of economic and social factors has pushed more Americans to the brink than ever before. The pressures are mounting, and the safety nets are fraying. The chronic lack of affordable housing was brewing for years, quietly growing in the background, but the COVID-19 pandemic made it erupt into a full-blown emergency. Emergency measures like eviction moratoriums and rental assistance were lifelines for millions, until they ended, leaving families suddenly facing eviction, mounting back rent, and nowhere to go. Rents have skyrocketed everywhere, in cities and small towns alike, while wages have failed to keep up, making it harder for people to afford even basic shelter. For many, a modest apartment now requires 2 or even 3 full-time jobs, forcing families to make impossible choices just to keep a roof overhead. Mental health and substance use issues, already a challenge, have been worsened by the isolation and stress of the pandemic, adding new layers to the crisis. Treatment centers are underfunded and overwhelmed, unable to meet the growing demand for help and support. Without stable housing, managing mental health or addiction is nearly impossible, trapping people in a cycle that's hard to break. Homelessness now affects seniors, young people, and working families. People who never imagined they'd be in this position, but now find themselves with nowhere else to turn. The safety nets we relied on, food banks, shelters, government aid, have proven inadequate, stretched far beyond their limits. The storm has arrived, battering hundreds of thousands with nowhere to turn, and leaving entire communities searching for answers. This is the new reality, a crisis that demands our attention, compassion, and urgent action. At the heart of this crisis is a brutal fact: there's not enough affordable housing in America. For decades, new construction hasn't kept up, especially for low-income families. Developers build luxury units for profit, not affordable homes. This scarcity drives up prices. In many cities, rent for a one-bedroom now eats up over half the average renter's income. Millions are one unexpected expense away from eviction. Homeownership is out of reach for many, pushing more people into a strained rental market. Landlords can be more selective, shutting out those with imperfect records. Federal programs like Section 8 are so underfunded that most eligible families never get help. We're running a lottery for a basic human need. The market and public policy have failed to provide housing for all. This housing chasm is why so many have no place to call home. Homelessness and mental health are inseparable. For many, untreated mental illness or addiction is a daily battle. Decades ago, deinstitutionalization closed state hospitals, but promised community care was never fully funded. Now, jails and shelters are our de facto mental health institutions, a tragic, expensive failure. Life on the streets is traumatizing, worsening existing conditions or creating new ones. Without a home, managing medication or therapy is nearly impossible. Addiction is often a way to self-medicate pain or trauma, but quickly becomes a trap. We treat addiction as a crime, not a disease, and offer too few treatment options. When help is needed, it's rarely available. The system fails the most vulnerable at every turn. Recovery and stability start with housing. Until we address this, the cycle continues. The face of homelessness is changing, shaped by climate disasters and migration. Wildfires, hurricanes, and floods now regularly wipe out communities, displacing thousands overnight. For families living paycheck to paycheck, disaster means permanent loss. Insurance and federal aid are slow or insufficient, leaving many in limbo. Temporary displacement often becomes permanent homelessness. Meanwhile, thousands of migrants and asylum seekers arrive in U.S. cities, fleeing violence and instability. They face legal barriers to work and overwhelmed shelters. Cities struggle to support both new arrivals and existing homeless populations. Resources are stretched thin, fueling tension and hardship. This is not the fault of migrants, but a failure of systems to adapt. Climate change and migration add new layers to an already dire crisis. Instead of solving homelessness, many cities criminalize it, making it illegal to sit, sleep, or camp in public spaces. Sweeps destroy people's belongings and push them further into the margins. Fines and arrests create records that make finding housing or work even harder. Public money is spent punishing poverty, not solving it. The Supreme Court's 2024 decision in City of Grants Pass v. Johnson gave cities more power to penalize people for sleeping outdoors, even when no shelter is available. This ruling has led to harsher crackdowns, treating homelessness as a nuisance, not a crisis. Homelessness is not a choice. People sleep outside because they have no other option. Punishing them is a policy of despair, not a solution. This maze of bad policy traps people in poverty and punishment. The climb out of homelessness becomes nearly impossible. Despite the bleak picture, there are real solutions. The most effective is housing first. Give people a home, then provide support services. Houston, Texas has reduced homelessness by over 60% with this approach, coordinating agencies to quickly move people into permanent housing. It's more humane and cost-effective than crisis services or jail. Salt Lake City and Finland have seen similar success, making long-term homelessness nearly non-existent. The key is treating housing as a human right, not a reward. Collaboration, investment, and political will drive results. In contrast, cities relying on shelters and punitive measures see little progress. Shelters are a temporary fix. Permanent housing ends homelessness. Housing First provides a clear, evidence-based roadmap. The hope is real, a solution exists. The challenge is finding the courage to follow it. We know what works. Now, we must act. We stand at a crossroads. The scale of homelessness is a national failure we can no longer ignore. Economic pressures, a broken housing market, and inadequate safety nets have left hundreds of thousands out in the cold. Criminalizing homelessness only deepens the wound. But there is hope. Housing First programs prove we can change lives and rebuild communities. The solutions are clear and proven. The question is whether we have the will to act. Do we avert our gaze, or do we believe in the dignity of every person? The answer won't be found in more shelters or punitive laws. It lies in our commitment to building a country where everyone has a home. We can choose empathy, solutions, and hope. Ending homelessness is possible. It's a choice we must make, for them and for all of us.